mowing yet, but
We don't care.
I didn't think you did. If you do, I heard you don't care.
It's our monthly water and sewer meeting. It's May 14th. So with that, we'll have an agenda or a motion to approve the agenda. A lot of detail in it carry over from last month, but there's also some new information we can use for a background for some of our discussions. So
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda. Second, I guess.
Any comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. We have approval of the April 9th minutes. A motion to approve the April 9th minutes. Is there a second?
I'll make second.
Ross? Comments? And then all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Those approved. So we'll start out with an update on our treatment plant. Joe, if you wanna
Yeah,
have a
so,
lot of detail here in the agenda, that's good, so.
yeah, we are. Construction is fairly quickly wrapping up. I guess just kind of going down the agenda, Staub has a pay request totaling about, 242,000. They asked to reduce their retainage below 2.5%, and I said no. Until, especially the last, punch list work and the SBR stuff kind of gets wrapped up. So that's kind of where we're at with that. But, the $242,000 retainage or pay request with 2.5% retainage does seem reasonable. We're getting down there on their contract, but, mind you, there is a decent amount of work to do yet, with the switchgear.
Okay.
That switchgear includes furnishing and installing that material. We've got temp facilities in, so they've gotta, when the new switchgear comes in, we have to pay for that. They have to install it and obviously switch that stuff out. So there's a decent amount of work with that. Obviously some miscellaneous punch list work and a little bit of work to do on the SBR with Xylem. So I think we're okay with where we're at, and obviously that 2.5% retainage is a decent amount of money to incent the contractor to keep them doing what they need to do.
One of those updates too with those is some new wire, replace the aluminum wiring.
Yeah,
So there's
with
two cables.
yeah, the temp panels are wired with aluminum wire,
Right. Kate and I were talking about that.
a
today.
means of reducing the contractor's cost for that temp facility. All the permanent wire is copper wire. But if you remember, we looked at that option to change everything to aluminum
Mhm.
back when we were doing the value adds, and we decided not to go that way. It's a bigger wire. There's some pros and cons. Obviously, the pros are saving some money, but anyway. Remaining construction issues being worked on by the contractor. The big item is really the SBR, and that is supplied by Xylem. Xylem, we have been trying to get to the plant for over a month, maybe 2 months. They finally committed to coming May 20th. In their defense, one of the issues that has kind of delayed their schedule is they are responsible for replacing this actuated gear housing that basically picks up and drops down the decant pumps into the SBR. And one of the housings for that decant pump failed. And they ordered a new one, and they ordered the wrong size, or whatever. It got shipped wrong, or they ordered it wrong, whatever. And so when the new one came in, they figured that out, and that's been a kind of a source of their delay. And I think when they come back, they wanna do everything. So that does make sense, but it doesn't make it any easier to swallow that we've been waiting for them to get there and waiting for that housing for several months. But when they do come, they will have that part. I thought that that was gonna ship maybe this week. Have you heard anything, Kate?
I thought it was supposed to be here ahead of time, but I haven't heard if it is or not.
I haven't heard either. I guess I forgot to ask Jeff. In addition to that, they've got some, dissolved oxygen sensors to install and just some refinement of that, system. And a little bit more integration work. And then there is another issue that we have, we're looking into, and that's these SBR sludge pumps. They don't seem to be pumping at the capacity that we'd like them to be pumping at. Mind you, they pump to the sludge storage tanks, and we don't have any sludge and won't for a while. So we've got some time to sort through that, but that's another item that we're gonna talk about and see if we can sort through. But aside from that, there is a little bit of integration work. Automatic Systems is periodically working on things and doing their final integration work. Pre-treatment building, I think there's a garage door opener that's in place. We replaced that with the one that is explosion proof, so that remains undone, at least last time I checked, and then some miscellaneous landscape work needs to be done. We do have an electrical inspection scheduled for next Thursday, the 16th. And then the MPCA is supposed to be out to look at the wastewater treatment facility and the lift stations on May 23rd. Really no change on the electrical switchgear in terms of that delivery date. As far as we know, it's October. But to my knowledge, we're not having any issues with power configuration at this point either. Kane, you know, you're pretty in tune to what's going on. Do you have anything to add to that or items we should talk about?
There's minor things, you know, like the gate has not been working, there's minor things, and that's part of that punch list that Jeff has developed and Staub's aware of. You know, Staub's off site right now, so I think they're waiting for, when they do come back, they want that punch list, they wanna finish it, they wanna do a final cleaning.
Right.
And they wanna essentially turn it over to the city, so.
And last I heard, they were even gonna have a contract cleaner. They didn't wanna do it themselves,
Yep.
which is fine.
Yeah.
So we're anticipating that'll probably happen in June.
Is everything working right?
Um,
All the temporary stuff. is getting done.
Well, especially with them PCA coming to inspect, are they gonna check, like, are we gonna meet our?
well, that's the next item on the list, but in terms of the operation, we're still within that 90-day window where we're not really, we're fine tuning things and not forced to comply with the effluent limits.
Are we close, like?
We're close with the exception of on the nitrogen limit, that's been higher than we would like. But one of the things that hasn't been happening because of the final SBR modifications that Xylem needs to do, the dissolved oxygen sensors need to be in place and we need to be able to start using chemical. Chemicals should work, they're there, but we're not using them because their stuff isn't in play. And so we think when all that comes into play, we'll be fine. So that's kind of where we're at. Kane, you're there daily, you.
Yeah,
Maybe
exactly
that,
that.
yeah.
All those, if you look at like number 2A, the SBR work, you know, that's a lot of work to be done there. Those sensors and getting everything to communicate with each other and getting it automated and then verifying that it's working, you know. Different batches of wastewater come in and those sensors and the SBR, Xylem, their programming can adjust and fine tune based on real data. So not having those sensors and instrumentation in right now, we're kind of running blind. We're just saying it's a 5-hour SBR period. It's decanting, it's mixing, it's settling, and we're sending it to final treatment. No feedback. There's no sensors in there telling us what's going on.
With the exception of sampling, you know,
With-
you can
yes.
manually sample and test, and
Yeah.
obviously the operators have some experience, so.
And so like the
That helps.
fine tuning, the programming that Xylem can do is once all those instrumentations, the sensors are in, we won't have to do a set schedule of 44-minute, mixing time, a 20-minute decant, you know, it can adjust depending on the strength of the wastewater
And the flows, and that's why it's
yes,
pretty darn nice when everything is working and
right.
we're
Right
struggling.
now, right now, we're in manual mode, you know, we're in manual mode, none of that has worked yet, so. A large portion of what needs to happen out there is the SBR and Xylem. So,
But they have made a lot of progress over the last month in terms of the pretreatment building and the screens and the filters and the UV, all of that is working like it should work at this point. It just took a little bit longer than we'd have liked for that to happen, but we're there. And then, like Kane said, there is miscellaneous punch list items, but they are making progress on those too. They've knocked a lot of them off. So. So there's progress being made, but really the big item is that May 20th Xylem appearance. And it's been a struggle to get them here, and there's some rationale as to why that hasn't happened, but in terms of that decant motor and that housing, but I'm not sure that it makes a ton of sense to me.
So, if they're here more than one day, are they here for the whole week or do we know?
I think they're supposed to be here that week. I don't know that we have a day specifically, and my guess is they'll be here for 3 days.
I think they'll have 2 travel days, probably a Monday and a Friday, and they'll be on site up to 3 days.
Those people are interesting. They go all over. And do these types of projects, like all over the world, and do these types of projects, so. They're hard to get. For better or worse.
Kind of like paving people, you like to have them stay here,
Yeah, when they're here, you wanna, well, and
do everything, not.
because they might be booked for Arizona next week, you know, you kind of get their window and they want everything ready for them for when they come, because they don't want to come back. At least that's my take. We didn't close the loop on the insurance piece yet. Do you have an update on where that
I-
piece is?
I'd written down Renee's name there and she just got back from school
Right,
and I didn't get a chance to touch base with her, but.
Kane, I know
I'll let
you
you
were
know.
talking with them. We answered a bunch of their questions. Do you have any?
Yeah, that's on my desk.
Okay,
That's going through, I got it back from them, the rewrite and going through that and redoing that, and then we're doing a little bit of back and forth, but yeah, that's.
okay. I'm assuming you've got everything, at least from my perspective, that you might need.
As far as I know, yeah.
It's a kind of a complicated thing to sort through.
That was, yeah, they have sent to both of us.
Yep, yeah. And so I've been going through the attachments and other stuff.
Kind of the bottom line is that we just need to move that forward and then and coordinate with Stop so that they know when they can quit insuring and the city's fully insured. Just a coordination issue. Peoples is obviously not here. We did talk about that 90-day window a little bit and where we're at. Kane, you have anything to add to that you wanna?
You know, the 90-day window, I think we'll be able to meet, the permit, the effluent limits within 90 days. Once that SBR facility is running, fully automated, I think it'll be I think it's reachable. I won't say it's easy, but it'll be reachable. Right now, we're doing it. We have had very good nitrogen levels, but you know, the plant's ever changing.
Yeah.
More people are hooking up, more wastewater, different strengths of wastewater. You know, we had some wet weather. I mean, it all plays a factor into it, so once it gets automated, I think we'll be able to meet those limits.
And just to point that out, the MPCA inspection has anything to do with effluent limits. It's just a construction inspection. We paid for X, Y, and Z, is X, Y, and Z here type of deal.
Okay.
And it's not even the final inspection. It's probably like a semi-final inspection. So it's not the end of the world. I should mention that we had a report to the MPCA that Orinoco was discharging untreated wastewater. And PCA came out to the discharge site 3 weeks ago. Bogus report. Walked down there, looked at the water, sampled the water. Didn't happen. Don't know why or how that was reported. But I think somebody down by Lake Sumbro reported something as I heard it. But people are watching, you know, we all know that, but, you know, if you hear rumors about that, dispel them. There is not a problem. Your wastewater is getting treated and, being monitored, you know, and PCA is on top of it and they were out there that morning. I think you were down there with them, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so was, yeah, you were there too, and so was Jeff and so was Peoples and.
It looked like clumps of dirt floating in the water. A picture of that taken on a cell phone camera. I mean, it could have been anything. It could have been dirt, mud, it could have been zebra mussels, it could have been something, right? You know, but then there was no context to it. It wasn't like the Ponderosa in the background. There wasn't a landmark. It was just a picture of water. So it could have been a picture from northern Minnesota or Texas, anywhere.
Interesting that we were the first fingers to get pointed at. And maybe that's rightful since we're the new facility. I don't know. Didn't make sense. I mean, what they were saying is almost impossible.
Yeah, there's no way solid could ever get back to the river. There's just no way.
Anyway, just an aside, collection system, trying to move a little quicker because I know we got a lot on the agenda. Fitzgerald, construction update, all the lift stations are complete in operation, all the connections to the existing wastewater systems are complete. Well, SCADA integration with wastewater system ongoing. I don't have an update on that, maybe you do. Are they working on that?
They are working on it. Not completed yet, but they are working on it.
Ellington, has 2 crews in town. They are installing grinder stations and completing that. I think the latest word is they had about 42 complete. They are continuing, with that process. I think by the end of this week, they will finish up that H area of, West Center Street, 9th Avenue and First Street Northwest. They're on First Street now. They're hoping to finish there this week. And then they'll go to First Place Southwest, finish there next week, and then they'll move to the east side of 52. And so they are making steady progress. One of the questions that is being asked, especially by the folks with the grinder stations, when are they gonna come in and complete final restoration? Well, Ellington is responsible for that. Their superintendent tells me in about 2 weeks, they expect to have restoration crews on site, doing fine grading, and then they'll have their subcontractor come in and do the final grading and then the hydro seeding. But that's kind of where they're at on that. They are making steady progress, and I'm happy to report that people are or have by and large, with I think a couple exceptions, got their electrical service disconnects constructed and operational. So that process is going fairly fairly well. Zempels is on Thursday. They're one of the last to get connected over there. And then the the contractor is making progress on, community waste treatment system decommissioning. In fact, talking to Luke, they are a little beyond where I thought they were. They've completed Riverwood Hills largely with the exception of a few buildings and things like that. They've completed Riverwood or Cedar Woodlands. In fact, I think they were working there today on Cedar Woodlands 1 and Cedar Woodlands 2 is done. They also removed that Timberline Drive lift station and that's all gravity now. So the last decommissioning work is really River Park. So that's moving fairly quickly. They're making progress on things like bollards at lift stations and miscellaneous punch list work. There was some issues that they had to address within the sewer that showed up on the televising reports. They just addressed those.
Ever get the leak over by Kane's place fixed?
There was two things in the sewer, one by Fifth Street and then there was a service and they fixed them both last week, I think. Yep. And so, yes, and bituminous paving and patching, we're hoping to get patches in the next 2 weeks. And then we're hoping to have workforce paving probably in June. The contractor is saying that Matthew isn't producing the kind of mix that we need right now. And they want to come in and do all of the final workforce paving in June. So that is okay. And then the other big thing is turf restoration. They're picking away at turf restoration. I talked to Luke again today. He knows that is a priority and I think he's hearing from some residents individually. They're doing some seeding and restoration. And that will continue. And hopefully he'll get a little bit more help and move that along faster. Obviously now is the time to seed. So that's where we're at with that.
If the Gold Rush is gonna have their play area up by the VFW, it'd be nice if it was grass instead of mud.
Yeah, that would be,
Be helpful.
yeah. So everything was seeded last year, if you remember,
Well,
last fall.
wind blew a lot of it away.
I don't know if it did or didn't, but it was all seeded once.
Might have been, but the wind blew a lot of it away. A lot of them rolled up and stuff and,
The matting.
yeah. It didn't stay put where it was supposed to.
So they will be overseeding and restoring some areas that settled or need additional attention. And then, of course, after the work course, all of that shouldering needs to be redone in at least the downtown.
So one question on the turf restoration, where on Minnesota down at the west of Ross's property, that green triangle, is that gonna be restored to where they? start
Yeah, there's some
wearing
erosion through that corridor that needs to be fixed. Yeah.
matting or
On
whatever?
both sides of Cedar Woodlands or Cedar Point Road. On both sides there is.
Okay.
I'm not scheduled to get mine trenched in until late fall, I mean, earlier this, late
Okay.
summer, early fall. But that'll be a different contractor, I think.
Okay. Okay. Change order number 5. That is for the water services under Fifth Street, the VFB at lift station 1A, which is looking like it totals about $5,240. We still don't have that final pay request. But there are a few other things that I think we might add to that. One of the things that I have some concerns about here right now, but
Stepped up.
there's some streets where the contractor ended up driving over and ended up piling material on and they're beat up, and I think we wanna work through that with the contractor. We've got a fair amount, we're a fair amount of money underneath the total contract price, not even dipping into the contingency. So I'd like to, I'm gonna meet with the MPCA and see what they'll fund in terms of maybe overlaying parts of those roads. Construction and, construction is construction and it's hard on things.
Probably other streets too.
Second Avenue is one, yeah. Third Street is another.
Mhm.
There's a handful of streets that probably could warrant some attention. I was just saying like a mill and overlay on parts of the street might be warranted in those areas, and I'm gonna try to figure out what the PCA will pay for. And so maybe me and you can tag team them a little bit on that and
Yeah.
see if we can make a justification, and maybe split some of those costs with the contractors too, and see if we can figure out something that works.
So the change order 5, that'd be in a June timeframe?
Yeah, hopefully.
Okay,
I think all the pieces are there except for that roadway piece, we gotta kind of figure out. They take a lot of time and they obviously gotta get council approval for, and the dollar amounts that we're talking about here are pretty small, so I haven't made it a huge priority for right or wrong,
Okay.
just fact. Pay request number 26 for Fitzgerald.
I have 429,375.96.
Yep, 429, 375, 96. And that, we have not reduced the retainage for them. But basically, we're paying out all of the lift stations at this point. And all of the connection costs. Next month, we'll be paying for the decommissioning of the sewer and some of the bollards and, probably some turf restoration, those types of things. And then I guess, depending on when in June they do the paving, maybe that. So we're getting down there.
So going back to the decommissioning bed under Fitzgerald, so in River Park, there's 2 buildings, are those gonna be just demolished?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And they have built a road down to 1A to work on those decommissioning those 6 tanks, so.
Yeah, they're hard to get to. So. PFA funding, PFA threw us a few curveballs last month, or over the course of the last month. One is, they noticed that there was a portable generator bid in the construction document. And of course, that's not a mystery to any of us, it's in all of the documents. But they want a resolution that says that those generators will only be used for the wastewater system. I wrote a resolution to have the council pass, I just pass it. I think if, and that's really what they're intended for, but if there is truly an emergency, I don't think Kane's gonna hesitate to use it wherever he needs it. And I don't think anybody would wrong him, say he's mistaken in doing that. I think it's just check the box. And then she also
So who's
indicated.
gonna draft that?
I did, it's in the packet.
It is, okay, good, thank you.
And then she also brought up spare parts for the grinder stations. We basically bid 5 spare pumps with associated parts for the grinder stations, and they're kind of saying, well, that's not eligible. And I came back with, you gotta be kidding me, you approved the plans are certified by the PCA. It's in all the documents. At the 11th and a half hour, how can you say that's not? I don't know. So I didn't include it in the pay request. The lady that approves these is retiring. The lady that's gonna replace her took another job. So we'll see what happens. That's my plan.
You let us know, we'll do something.
Yeah, it's going on the next pay request. I just think it's ridiculous, frankly.
You're right, Christine.
Yeah. Riverbend is something I do wanna talk about. You guys all know where River Bend is. There's 17 houses, on River Bend's just west of Riverwood Hills and a new subdivision. There's 17 houses that I think are all built out there on a community waste treatment system. All the residents want to be connected. What has to happen is there is an existing lift station there that pumps up to a 3-cell community waste treatment system, a drain field. And so there's 3 pumps in this lift station and there's 3 pipes. And so it rotates which cell it pumps to. And so we need to modify that lift station so that all 3 pumps pump to the sanitary sewer. And so that requires about, I don't know, 250 feet of 3-inch force main and a connection in, I think it's Riverwood Hills Drive. There's a manhole in the middle of the road there, just right by that resident. So what I would really like to do is before the bituminous patching comes, we have unit prices to do this work within the contract. I just like to do it. And at least get the sewer connection to that manhole and get the sewer pipe, you know, in the vicinity of the grinder station or the lift station, and then we'll figure out the rest of it. But I think the important thing is to get the connection made and get the street patched and utilize the bid unit prices that we have in the contract.
Is that, you said the 3 or 4 inch force main, is that gonna be big enough for the future? Is there a chance of,
That's all that'll ever be on it.
oh, okay. This is the future.
Yeah.
Okay.
And honestly, that noise main's probably bigger than it needs to be. So I think that needs to be worked out. We're gonna take a little closer look at that lift station next Thursday. We're gonna meet Gopher out there and, I'm gonna have my lift station guru here to look at that as well as a final inspection on the other lift stations.
Anybody have any questions or concerns about going ahead with that?
And the other thing I should point out is there's 17 properties there. We told those property owners that we would assess them, or charge them, you know, $8,817 per connection. That's more than enough to pay for this. We're not talking about a lot of money here. You'll get more and, you know, and that's paying for part of the wastewater treatment plant. You know, there's an increment there, but you know, the bottom line is you're gonna see more come in than you're gonna spend on this. I think the important thing is, to at least get the sewer connection complete and the street work patched back, so we should do that. Does the committee wanna make a recommendation on that? Do you guys have questions?
I think it's wise to get it done before the final paving of the streets, so that chances are we can get a better job of paving.
Well, and it's gonna be cheaper.
Yeah.
So I'll make a motion. We have Fitzgerald proceed to connect River Bend Estates at contract bid unit pricing from their lift station to the existing
Gravity sewer.
or from the grinder stations to the manhole on Riverwood Hills, right?
I'll second that motion.
And just to be clear, we probably won't make that connection yet until we figure out what we need to do with, if the pumps are adequate. They're 2 years old, 3 years old, but the control panel probably isn't adequate. We'll see what we can do with that. And we'll bring that back to talk about.
We pay for the decommissioning then.
The developer,
What?
the developer.
Oh, okay.
And in fact, they'll want to decommission that system because they can put 2 more lots there.
That's Paul Meyer.
But I mean, there's an incentive for them to do that. Cause they will put 2 more lots out there, I'll almost guarantee it.
Okay. Any other comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Pose same sign. Approved.
So sewer and water connections and rates. Item one, a notification letter was sent out to basically tell everybody that hasn't been told that you do indeed have your sewer and water service connection is available for connection. And then in conjunction with that, we mailed out an updated guidance document that has the updated sewer connection permitting information in it and a few other updates in terms of the contractors doing work and other things that Kane and city staff suggested. So that went out the first, I think it was May 3rd. And so essentially that gives people a year from that date to complete the connection. So May 2025, that connection's complete. I think I did attach the template letter. You know, obviously that letter had the specific information for each property owner. Did you guys all,
I got one.
you got it? You should have got it. Kane got one. Okay. And all it does is it just, two, really? Two of the same letter?
No, two parcels.
One for each eye.
So it should be pretty straightforward. I mean, it's just telling people what they gotta do and that they can connect. And I think a lot of people are working towards that. The lists are pretty long in terms of the cities or the connections that are getting made. You got yours, city's done, right? All three of them or?
Orinoco Park. Yet to come, so,
Well, it'll probably be the last one Ellingson gets to.
yeah, we got some time.
So that did go out and did get addressed. Discussion regarding sewer.
Number two.
Yeah, discussion regarding sewer use billing beginning in April 2024. We talked about this with city staff a little bit, and we talked about it back in the day when we were completing the facility plan and feasibility report, how the sewer rates are billed. And so I think the intent is that we base the sewer rate, base rate on the equivalent residential units of a parcel. So for example, a twin home or an apartment with 3 people. 3 times 0.8 is 2.4 equivalent residential units. So it's 3 units, 2.4 equivalent residential units. And so to calculate their sewer bill, it's the base rate times the number of equivalent residential units. So the base rate, $20 and 20 some odd dollars times 2.4, plus the usage of all of it. And that's how that is calculated. We hadn't been doing the water that way, but that's how I would do it. And that's how I wrote the things, and that's how we talked about it in the past. And I just wanted to, we don't have to do it that way. I mean, you could do it per hookup. But then that means that Paul's bill is the same as that 3-unit apartment facility, with the exception of they might use more water, so that, you know, they'll pay a little bit more there. It's whatever you guys think is fair. And so that's what we did it, but that doesn't make it right, or that doesn't make it the only way to do things. There's other ways to do things. I just wanted to bring it to everybody's attention and get feedback on it.
What about all the open houses you presented as ERU?
I did.
So then that's the way we should do it. We shouldn't change now if we told everybody one way. If that's the way it was written and presented, then that's the way it should be. For consistency. You change it now, it looks sketchy.
To me, it's easy to explain, you know, the apartment rental building or twin homes, whatever we come up with, we have a rationale for what if we didn't do it that way, then it's gonna be very subjective and people can start complaining.
If they build those duplex or fourplexes behind me that
Mhm.
they're supposed to then, would they be assessed for one or for four? For fourplex?
So it's, well, it really,
Each one of them fourplexes is like a single family dwelling.
it
You got a
really,
full
yeah,
family with kids.
it really depends on what the occupancy of those facility, or those dwellings are. Yeah, so if, you know, they're apartments, it was an apartment complex, it'd be just 0.8. ERU per, but if they're bigger facilities that are, you know, intended to be 3, 4 bedroom units, then they should get 1 ERU per each, I would say.
So like in the case of a quad, I guess my assumption is right or wrong, but for discussion, if the quad has 4 water meters and 4 gas meters, it'd be a 1. Each would be 1 ERU.
Yeah, I suppose. Just like just like a true twin home, if they get two sewer and water services. You know, they're
Right.
essentially a house. They're
They're housed with a common wall, but it's
3 or 4 bedroom, but you know, they're not apartments. They're not. At least most of them.
Right.
So that's how I would choose to do that.
I think what Paul said, that is one-on-one, if they got 3 apartments in there, you could have 3 different families, you know. Husband and wife. In each one.
And this should also, you know, this applies to commercial properties, so. A restaurant or people's service, they're more than 1 ERU, right? And so. Their utility bill would be based on. In that case, their water use. Cause we know what their water use is, and we basically divided their water use by 5,000 gallons per month, and, you know, if they had. 10,000 gallons a month on average, then they were 2 ERU. And so then they would pay their base rate based on that 2 ERU. Calculation for sewer and water. And so that's what we talked about, and now we're sending out the bills, and we had a discussion about it, and so just trying to make sure we're all on the same page.
Larry or John, have any comments? Joe? Yay, nay? Sounds good.
Sounds reasonable, you know. Is it 0.8 for an apartment building, or is it?
For our unit,
Per unit, so if it's a fourplex, you got 3.2 kind of deal.
maybe, yeah. Again, depending on
I like that word, maybe.
well, you know, there's lots of different ways things can be configured, so, you know, if each one of those units is a 4 bedroom unit, for example. Which probably is unlikely, right? They're probably smaller, they're probably more,
But if you have a 3-bedroom apartment, you're gonna have the same occupancy as you'd have a 3-bedroom house,
maybe,
theoretically.
That's about it.
So I think they ought to just say, this is cut and dried, it's 1 ERU per unit, and leave it at that.
we could.
I think it'd be fair.
You have any comments, Kane, from Public Works?
Yeah, all good discussion here. You know, a trailer house is 0.8. You know, Orinoco Estates right now, there's 180 units out there, 180 trailer homes. So take that 180 times 0.8. You get 140 something, I don't know. That is what we're charging Orinoco Estates, because a trailer house is 0.8. So think about that structure here in the city. We don't have many trailer houses. Most of our houses are single family homes. There's not a lot of apartments. There's not a lot of commercial and restaurants, and there's just not. So we're talking about 30. You know, maybe you throw the churches in there, but that's just based off of water too. So the churches are only gonna be a 1 ERU, you know? But if you throw the businesses in, the commercial, that's a way to charge accordingly. Whether it be 1.0, 1 to 1, or 0.8, or however that structure is. I'd lean to Joe to,
Well, where you kind of run into trouble is when you have a big user, right? Like a bigger restaurant that goes in, that's 5 ERUs. They use that much water, you can calculate it, do the math, they're equivalent to 5 houses. But their bill is gonna be 5 times that amount. Well, is that a hardship? Is that fair? Is that equitable? I guess that's the decision that you know.
If they're using that much, 5 times the water, I think it's equitable, they pay 5 times the rate, because,
I'd agree.
I mean,
But-
that sounds logical to me.
If you ask them, they're gonna make a different argument, my guess is, right? That's, that's there's 2 sides to every argument, right?
When I first got married, I lived in a mobile home, 3-bedroom. Had wife and I and 2 kids. That was our house.
So I think we all agree ERU is the right way to go.
Yeah.
Let's go, that's what we established, so.
and the thing is could always reassess a year from now or 2 years from now, 6 months from now. If 0.8 or if that factor isn't working.
Yeah.
This committee and the city council have the authority to change that. To go from 0.8 to 1 or to, I don't know about Orinoco Estates, I won't go down that road right now, but, always a possibility.
Yep, it's just kind of sticking with where we plan to be, I guess, is what it is, and it's a good discussion to have, and probably another one that should be revisited in a year.
Okay, let's go on.
The May 15th deadline, so. A year ago, we sent out, notices to houses basically in that northwest. Northwest Orinoco area, as well as Treetop and Forest Lanes that got water service. And we said you had a year to connect water to your water service. Well, most of those people were also getting sewer service, most of them getting grinder pumps. And if you remember, we did work with the contractor last summer, spring and summer, to construct those water services in joint trench with the force main that went to the grinder stations. And some of those residents, especially the ones with the really long water services, they kind of needed to wait for that work to get done before they could connect to their water service. And there were 2 residents that got gravity sewer on Forest Lane that, the gravity sewer just became available. And the reality is, for those folks, they're gonna have one contractor do both the sewer and water at once, right? And so in light of these circumstances, you could argue that these people really didn't have a full year. And so maybe rather than starting to charge them for water service connections that they may or may not have, or they might not have made yet, maybe we should give them an extra,
6 months. or-
6 months is what, I think that's what I put in my little note here. Maybe I just threw out November, but just trying to be fair. But that's up to you guys. There's different ways to look at this. It was the nicest winter on record. People could have got this done. And
But if they
quite a
want-
number of them didn't.
If they want to share a common trench and they both weren't available, then I think you have to wait.
Yep.
It wouldn't make sense to trench it in once and then turn around, trench the rest of it in.
Wouldn't.
No.
I agree. So that, I think there's a legitimate argument for an extension for people to consider if you want to consider.
I think Jason had a comment.
If I may, I think the date for November 2 is also big, because it gives them the full summer to get things done before we really get into winter time.
Yeah.
Construction's gonna stop again. So that, until next spring. So, why not a full year extra? Well, that's why, because realistically by next spring anyways, they would have until November to basically get it done. So I think that was kind of why that date was selected, that time frame.
Yeah, and a lot of those, a a lot of those, or almost all of those joint trench force main water services were in by November of last year. You know, so it theoretically would give them a year anyway.
It seems fair and logical. I wouldn't want it to have two trenches dug paid. So I think absolutely giving an extension this November makes sense.
There's 40.
Make the motion.
40 left of the 60.
Okay.
I'll second it.
So I'd make the motion that we'd extend it to November.
I'll second it.
That's to the end of November.
You pick the day.
Yeah, you pick the day.
Leftovers.
Guess it depends on the weather, right?
How much Thanksgiving?
So I would craft a letter, you know, assuming the council agrees, craft a letter kind of saying that and send that to the 40 property owners that remain. Work with Kane and Jason to get
Oh,
that
it's
done.
40, did you say 40 instead of 56?
Let me count one more time, right around that 40.
I think he's saying that some of those
Done.
56 are done. They met their deadline.
Yeah.
And I, you know, I would assume that others are in the process, so.
Cause I know that's a big thing we've been hearing too, with people coming in, trying to get these permits, to get the deadlines is. Contractors are also booking up, and booking up fast, and their neighborhoods are trying to get together and do them, they're trying to work together as neighbors as well. Which has been great, I'm glad to see them doing that, but it's still, you know, there's just a lot of work being done in the area. And not as many contractors to be able to do it, so I think the great extra time would be great for everybody.
And I've heard that too from the contractors. They're just booked.
All right, any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye, oppose. Approved, we'll make that recommendation to council.
So updated, resident guidance documents were sent out with that, in conjunction with that May 3rd letter, and they're also posted on the Facebook page. Item 5. Renee and Kane have been working together to load the sewer and water hookup information into the billing software and complete the billing. We talked a lot about how to best do that. And try to make that simple, and I don't know if we accomplished that goal. Based on some of the feedback that we got from city staff, and, you know, if you remember, we kind of picked the minimum water usage for, especially with people that without meters installed. To assume that they're using 3,000 gallons a month, and then if they connected before the 15th, it was a full base rate payment plus the 3,000 gallons, and if they connected after, it was half the base rate plus half the usage. And I'm not sure that that's working with the software package that we have. And so I guess it's just an open discussion as to how best to rectify that situation.
Yeah. I've been giving it some thought as well, as far as. I think we learned a lot, from that. Anytime we go into start building software again, we should include Renee in our discussions. That's a given. But as far as, you know, we've been doing this for most of a month now. And so there's a lot of people that are all part of this splitting the month in half and going forward, so. I do know that, our city administrator is looking at more, manpower. Possibly a utility, part-time finance person, but somebody take that utility billing off of Renee's desk. And I think that may bode well with keeping what we have versus going back and changing something now. And I think that would, at least I think that's what's gonna be proposed to council. But I think that would be, because right now I think it is a lot of work, but at the same time, I don't know if Renee, I don't know if you've had a chance to talk with Renee, if she's found in her discussions with Tyler Tech, to find out there is still a lot of work, but there were some things that she wasn't aware of that helps with this type of process, I guess, so. I could be wrong, but I think changing something now would be confusing not only to our residents, but also to Renee as well.
So can I ask a question? Just because I don't understand how the building programming works. Is this just a short-term problem because we're having all of these people hook up like suddenly now? But then like a year from now, this problem goes away because everybody's hooked up. And so everybody's getting billed for the full month. Is that what this is?
Yeah, and all this stuff goes away really.
I could try to explain it, Paul. So if you got hooked up after the 15th, you and all your neighbors who got hooked up after the 15th got a specific base rate and a specific water usage if you didn't have a water meter, right? So Renee had to go through each one of those accounts being hooked up mid-month, you know, the second half of the month, and manually put in that information. Verify they have a water meter, or if they don't. So now next month, she'll have to go back in and change all those people that were a half month and estimated water usage, and to change that all back to now a full month. So it's a little bit of back and forth for those residents who don't have a water meter and they're hooked up the second half of the month. And just tracking that's kind of it can be a pain.
What percentage of people don't have a water meter?
Well, there's 40 that were sent the notice May 3rd last year, you know, they still need to hook up. And a majority of those are hooked up to grinders now. So,
But do they have a water meter now or not?
some do have water connection, but some do not. So each one is unique in a way.
Oh, boy.
So, you know, it could go one of two ways, and I understand what Ryland's saying. If we change it now, it's just gonna add confusion, but either the city could eat that cost for that half a month's worth or not, or we just pass it on to the resident. You hooked up, you were hooked up for a day, you're getting a full ERU, and you're getting a $3,000 gallons because you don't have a water meter. You know, the city could take it that way but we haven't.
How much are we talking about? 3,000 gallons of water? How much are we talking dollar wise? What's the city getting a gallon for water?
Well, I think the difference between the two scenarios is maybe $20.
Oh, so it's not an earth shattering,
Per
it
month.
won't break the bank one way or the other. Gotta say Renee, a lot of.
Tell that to the resident that comes in with the water bill though and complains about it.
Well, and you will get that guy, right?
We've gotten
Yep.
a ton of them with the hookups, and it's not necessarily complaints, but the change in bill, everyone, I mean, tens of phone calls every week. That we're getting, why is my bill changed? Why is my bill this? What is this? Everybody's concerned about it and wants to know what's going on, and they're having complaints about it and just because they don't understand, and so it's one of those things, yeah, it seems minimal, but it still means a lot to the citizens too.
Yep.
So.
So I think what we have is, but it will continue on, you know, as we build new homes in the city. If they build in that last half and they connect a water meter, they're gonna fall under this guideline here. So it's just not this little first phase 1A. I mean, what we have in place now, but going forward, any home that's built in the first of the month is gonna be 3,000 gallons. The second half of the bill is gonna, that new home is gonna get that.
Every home
But
going
the
forward
tenants
should have a
should have
water meter.
Yeah. but
So
before
I would
they-
argue that every home going forward would have a water meter. So that problem isn't there.
Should have a water meter.
Yeah.
But hopefully we have manpower in place to take care of this type of situation. All right, any other discussion?
6 gallons a month either.
Thank you, Jason.
Jason?
Well, just to kind of preface that with, yes, we are looking to get posted and hired here hopefully soon, a financial clerk position, the full-time position. That'll help alleviate that and take on those. So I think short term, it's a little bit much for our office right now, but hopefully in the next month we can get that position hired and filled and start transitioning that and take that burden away. So as we continue through, say, a year from now, when most of these are done, it's not as much of a burden anymore.
Okay. Any update on our, on-call policy is still in process, on hold?
We're working through it.
Anything on the cross connection?
No, that, we're hooking up some irrigation meters now. We have gotten some interest in second water meters. And with that, the second water meter is an irrigation meter. So with that, irrigation systems need to have a backflow device. Backflow devices also need to be tested annually. So I've been working with some of the larger sprinkler companies, reaching out to them, figuring out who are their clients, and then just building that relationship with them. When they do that annual testing of that backflow device, to share that information with us, and that needs to stay current. So every year, if you have irrigation and you have a backflow device, Minnesota Plumbing Code states it needs to be tested annually. And so that's the language right there. So if you use your irrigation, great, it gets tested annually. If you don't use your irrigation, it still needs to get tested annually. So, we're working with the sprinkler companies right now. We're kind of more concerned with the high hazards. Irrigation systems, and then it would be like the commercial side, like, anyone who's using water for other than drinking, right? If you're using water for processing or heating, cooling, whatever, those are the high hazards that we're gonna work into. But for now, we're a large number of the concern is irrigation systems, so.
So do we have meters for people to install for the irrigation? So like,
Yep, they're
if they
exactly
want
the
one, just
same.
Contact you.
Yep, well, come to City Hall, fill out a permit. We've got permits just for irrigation only. It's the same size meter, a little different technology on it right now, but, they're available.
We're getting word out there about second water on some of our Facebook pages, so I'm gonna put a paragraph together, give it to Renee and have it get out on the website because it's not out there, but people need to be aware of that because if you don't have it, you're gonna get double water bills. Looks like double, but it's sewer and water, yeah.
Right, you're gonna see a high sewer bill
Right.
based on high single water meter usage.
My stool ran for 4 days, so I've got a high sewer bill. My sewer bill is higher than my water, well, no, it's the same. Yeah. I missed it. Or even if you're watering outside, if you got a faucet you use for watering, have your plumber tied in to that irrigation meter. Take it off of your home use. So we can take cross connection off the agenda.
Yes,
Okay, thank you. Last item was just, as we, continue to work towards a final completion of automatic system working in the near future, we should be looking at maybe, the July, August, maybe a September, when it's nice and green out there. Open house for everybody, and, I think that would be a great celebration to have, and we can plan on that. I mean, we may want to put a smaller ad hoc committee together. We're working on that as well from the city staff and also if anybody from the committee
You
too. So,
mentioned August with Gold Rush. August gets to be a real busy month.
yeah, it probably maybe a September. Something like
July or September to me would make more
that,
sense.
between rain
Yeah, you could
showers.
do it in June or July too, if you wanted to. I don't
Yeah.
know what you think. As soon as, I would want the cleaning done, I think. Not that it's
Yeah.
terribly dirty, but if people are walking through.
it'd be nice to see all the grass kind of lush
Yeah.
and full, and
Would.
Final switch.
So maybe-
maybe
No.
September wouldn't be the worst thing. I mean,
Yeah. That would give things a chance to go.
We'll set up placards at each building identifying what it does, and just a lot of different things, of information you can get out there.
I was thinking it'd be kind of nice to have kind of a collage of, this is what it looked like with the foundation and the conduit and the, you know, the different stages of all that goes into it, because when you walk through it, you just don't have any idea what's in it. All the steel and the, you know,
Maybe some large poster boards, you know, like you said, a collage, a little bit of information on there.
yeah, this is what this does.
Yep.
Generic terms, it'd be kind of fun.
I got some pictures from March of 2022 when it was all cornfields, so.
Yeah.
All right, I'll make a motion, meeting adjourned.
Let's second that.
Can we bring up one thing or do we?
Oh, I'm sorry. I should have asked. Thanks, John.
Yeah, I'm just curious. Last council meeting, Chuck and Pauline were here. And talked to you, my neighbors,
Yeah,
about water. And they were just kind of curious why they didn't have water line brought to their property, you know, you talked to them in the hallway.
yeah.
And I guess I'm just kind of here in behalf, just trying to find out what we can do for them to get them water, or if they want
Well, I
water.
put together an email on that and I think I copied both you and
I didn't get it.
Larry.
I didn't see one either.
And I did it the next day.
They didn't come to me.
Um,
I heard one from Kane, but I didn't get it.
the reality there is they're too high for our water system to serve. They're about 10 feet above the elevation that we can practically serve. And it would require about a 500-foot water service, which will reduce that pressure head that much more. And so there's a reason that they weren't served with the initial phase of the water project. We can't serve them.
But in the letter they got, they were gonna get assessed $6,000.
No,
Or what,
no.
isn't it in here?
No. The letter simply says, it was a form letter and it says, you're being assessed for 1 sewer service and 0 water services. The cost for the sewer service is $8,817. The cost for the water service is $60.
$6,875.
So 0 times 6,000 is 0. Their assessment for water was 0. They didn't get assessed for water.
Okay, yeah, okay, so they didn't get assessed for water, but I guess, can't we get them water? You're saying, when did you do the elevation checks on all that? I mean,
Last month.
okay, shouldn't that have been done before we even went into this process? I'm just asking, should it have been done before?
Well, it was clearly done in 2009, that's why they didn't get served. I didn't remember that. So I did
Because
the,
last month, I mean, you talked, it's like they kind of got forgotten,
well,
you know?
I forgot. I didn't remember that analysis was done. 2009 was a long time ago even for me.
Mhm.
So I'm saying maybe we overlooked it, maybe I forgot, whatever. So I did go through and I did look at it. I sent the information out. I thought you got it.
Did they get anything?
Why? I don't have their contact.
Okay, well, I didn't know if the mayor talked to them or somebody from the city talked to them and says, you know, this is not feasible, we can't do this. But is it feasible somehow to do it for them? Could you have an easement? Right? You paid for an easement, you could
We
get water
could
to the base of the hill.
Increase the pressure head, so we could raise the tower elevation.
I'm not saying that. They could people are telling me they could put a lift pump in with a pressure tank to their house too. The guys are saying that could be done also. They'd have to pay for it,
Yeah.
but I'm just bringing it up. Is it possible or is it absolutely, there's no way this could work?
There is nothing that is impossible.
Mhm.
I mean,
What's the max elevation that we can serve water to?
I wanna say it's 1140, 1040 or 1140. I can't remember. Which is,
Some difference in there.
Now is,
well, you just can't expect that I remember everything.
Okay.
No, I don't remember everything.
no,
You know what our
is there water?
towers elevation is?
Not right off the top of my head,
Okay.
no.
Is there water going, I mean, there's water going to the cemetery, right, Joe? They're higher than, cemetery's higher than their floor, so I'm just, you know.
Yeah, but they're not a house either, and they have different pressure requirements. They don't have much pressure at the cemetery. They asked for a service, we gave them one.
Mhm.
But I'm not gonna extend a water service to a house at that elevation and expect that they will have adequate pressure and flow. They won't.
What I'm afraid of here is that I just hope we're not sweeping them underneath the rug. You know, if there was 10, 20 homes out there, we say, hell
There
yeah,
are.
hell yeah, we'll get you water, no problem.
There are other
But-
homes that can't be served by this pressure head.
Okay, but I'm just hoping we're not sweeping these people underneath the rug, 'cause nobody's really talked to them, I mean, that day out in the hallway, I didn't think that was. I didn't care for it the way it went down, let's just say that, so. I'm just-
So the other alternative, well, not an alternative, but the other thing we need to keep in mind is that we're gonna have growth in the city. And the growth in the city is going to be a potential, could result in a higher water tower. We've talked about another adding on to the water tower for more pressure to reach further out into the city and everything, so. So that's a possibility in the future. We don't have a time frame for that, but I do think that's a possibility. That's one of the alternatives we have versus a second well or a second tower. One is to extend the height of this one, which I think Joe has talked about. Maybe that's a possibility to make up for that in height difference, elevation difference.
But they're gonna put sewer line in coming down the hill, so. Should they be putting a water line in coming down the hill no, they shouldn't spend money on
I
that.
wouldn't, I think it's foolish.
Okay, but getting back to my other point, if we run water to their base of their hill and they put a lift pump in there and a pressure tank, and they paid for, is that, what's the cost of all that versus them drilling a new well? You know, the day their well goes out, going, gosh, maybe we should have done that, you know, so. I'm just wondering if we've done our due diligence as a council, they pay their taxes here, somebody explain it to them, that's all I'm asking for. You know, give them a good explanation of why it's not been done.
And I
That's all.
did that through the correspondence I
Maybe
sent.
that's what we do.
Okay, well, if they got the letter, that's fine, but
I didn't send it to them, I sent it to you.
no, that's.
Well, I,
I was gonna ask them to come here
Let
tonight,
me circle
but
back and you have their address, right? You know where they
I
live.
think you should go talk to them,
And I
or
can talk
somebody
to
just
them, yeah.
visit with them, they're in their seventies, they don't understand everything, you know, so they just need somebody to sit down and break it down for them a little bit,
I can do that,
that's all. Okay. That's all I got.
no problem. We talked a little bit in the hallway too, just for a few minutes that evening when he was here. Or he came in the other, another following day when I was here watching the office, he came in and talked. That's okay. I'd rather spend time talking to him and, you know. Okay, we'll do that.
I think a good example for water pressure up there would be to take your garden hose, Larry, and walk it up the hill to Rupp Calvis's and see what you got for pressure, you know, standing on their deck, you know. That would be a good indication of what the pressure would look like.
Yeah, but you also said a lift pump and a pressure tank would work too, you said
Yep.
that.
Yep, there is a person over in River Bend who's got a pressure tank and a booster pump.
Hmm.
Because River Bend's up there
That's
in elevation
right
too,
up
that's
that
borderline. So,
It wouldn't be possible to run a line down from the, what is the size of the pipe that goes to the cemetery and comes down? Probably just a small line, huh? Like all the tower and across the
I
highway.
don't remember what size line it is, probably a 2-inch pipe.
Cause you go down, you walk along the cemetery line up there, all the way down, and their house is quite a bit lower than what that tower is up there. I was just wondering if there couldn't be a line just drilled right down the line of the cemetery. Get down there part way,
Not at the elevation that they're at.
still wouldn't do them any good.
They can, you can have water, you just don't have pressure. And there are certain thresholds that you need to meet in certain terms of residential pressure, and they would not meet it. And so, could the city build another pressure zone, yeah, that's in the works. That someday there will be another pressure zone that'll serve the people up in Treetops and the people south of Hunter Street. That is in the works if it's feasible and the council wants to do it at some point. That is how the system is laid out. But there are limitations to the system that exists.
Lancaster has a high level and a low level system. And
Yep.
they've got high level out northwest and Country Club Manor's high level. So they had to run a 12-inch line between the two systems system. So they only had.
And that's not uncommon in areas
Big-
with big,
towns.
well, it's not even big towns, it's just a lot of vertical elevation, you know, a lot of elevation difference. There's just, you have a zone in which you can provide a pressure head, and that pressure head can't be, you know, you can't have some houses with 120 PSI and some with 40. That's not okay.
I
Or
think
20.
anything over 90, they have to put pressure reducing valves on because it's
Exactly.
won't take it. So,
Exactly. That's a lot of pressure.
yeah.
And it's not good for things.
Yeah.
So there, you know, there's a good reason for that pressure zone. And you basically serve people within that elevation plane that correspond to the pressure zone. That you can serve. That's the simple reality of it.
The Duluth
All
must
right.
have really interesting infrastructure.
They probably do, yeah. Yeah. Different pressure heads, different zones. There's ways to do it. Booster stations, they all cost a lot of money, you know, none of it's free, and you ask, can we serve them? Sure, we can do anything. Is it economically feasible? No, probably isn't. Especially for one house.
All right, so let's, we have a motion to adjourn at 7:50. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Hey, John.
It's one of them very speed wells. There's no pressure tank.
FYI,
Instead of using
so that's why
water,
we asked.
just put it in.
Oh, really? Yeah.
When it speeds up. it's
As there's more pressure demand, more demand.
For the emails.
And I think we got the well set.
We should've got this.
Down there, so I got good water now.
Sent out on,
765, I didn't have good
Yeah.
water.
Well, you're up pretty high.
I'm worried about when I get home.
Oh, you-
I might not have any-
One of those hand pumps out there.
Yeah.
So that's all back.
Yeah, I don't sit there and study that.
That's what I'm gonna ask you, is there was a note, I think, in the letter about it, floor drains in the basement. It was a cost agenda for a lift pump, or you call it a flat plane pump or something like that.
Yeah, so.
So it did say, ask you with any questions that you might.
Yeah, thank
In terms of,
The elevation where the service is tapped to our house, there might not be a suitable
Slightly.
grade to drain floor drains, for example, depending upon at what elevation the pipe comes from.
right,
And, so we do have basement floor drains, and I know our septic was really deep. We got 6 feet of riser and 5 feet of tank, we still have feet into the
Situation like that, now, does he have to abandon his septic tank?
Oh, yeah, it's all gonna be-
Where's the floor drains in your basement gonna go?
Oh, that's what I'm asking here, I mean, we have to put a for those.
if we would happen to not be deep enough to pick up the floor drains in your house, you'd have to have a like basically on the.
For the basement.
For the basement.
Or actually, the whole thing, it's all gonna go the same thing.
Depending on how your house is plumbed, you'll see a lot of houses here, because most septics are shallow.
Ours is limited.
Yeah, that's unusual, right? But hopefully we're still deep enough, for your specific
Yeah.
situation.
I know the pipe is deep, the main is deep, where we're at, just because of the street is laid out.
Well, the other thing is it's costly to, you know, put in a main that's 15 feet.
Right, right.
Versus
Bigger.
thinking about putting a grinder station in, I guess if I could do it feasibly, I'd probably do it, but there's lots of variables.
And the thing is, we're, everything in our house went south to Maysville, but it's clay pipe and it's collapsing and I just paid a bunch of money to have them poured. So I want to abandon that and come up with this east corner. That's, you know,
So it'd just be in there.
So let's just go look where you're at. I agree.
And once
I
you
didn't bring
get.
my old map, but I'll try to see what I can see.
That's what we.
I got mine on my head.
There you go.
No, we don't have.
First down, days.
Last time he took it.
We're right here.
All right.
That goes there about. That's the thing.
I don't know for sure how.
Yeah, you're right.
I'm working on it. We'll get one.
Oh, this is.
We get
Right.
When we get one.
So do you have a?
A guy that's retired and was in gas.
Yeah, I think, I wanted to say it was 20 minutes.
Cause like.
We're under that.
The ministers that were coming in.
We would probably.
So we set up
Some of these pastors, they really young.
Feet deep.
and everything.
Just so you don't have to.
Flip, but it was on the average.
It's all gadgets, so it's about
Right. So there's a riser coming out of the main and then they level it off at 2% to drop it. Just what typically would happen. I think we would identify that, maybe it's deeper, maybe it needs to be deeper.
I hate to see the apartment. Because it's here in town that. I don't.
Well, I mean, that's why we had it done with ours, we were about.
Fire station or community center or something. I just, we hadn't talked for.
If the right thing came along, and say somebody wanted to buy the place. I think we should put money out of building out. That way,
Good portion of it. doesn't
So
that way.
you might consider sleeving that? Is that what you're saying?
No.
You know,
Or how do they?
How do they feel in the house?
Take a few irons out of the fire.
well, you know, there's a possibility. The right
So,
thing.
you know, how does, do you know the procedure that they use?
Suppose you guys don't have too many new members, do you?
Just the coring?
The other one.
Alright.
Oh, all right, sure.
Yeah.
They took a lot of time.
You're gonna have that.
I never missed a peg. He wouldn't
Yeah.
believe it.
So,
Yeah, a lot of contractors, at least the bigger contractors.
It's twice as deep as what the one
They'll
is
be able
in the
to-
go through and do what's it gonna do.
Wow. You get on one flight of stairs and then another.
Similar deal with that, sometimes.
Any water problems?
No.
Might consider sleeving that.
Whoever built it. thought he-
No, new pipe.
Okay.
Put a sleeve through the wall.
Very good.
All
right, so, all right.
But I mean, it's,
Appreciate that.
it's something to think about.
They would call and ask us if they. tell them.
What's going in down?
Oh, that's a
All time.
Mark, it's pretty late over there, I was
It's, uh,
Oh, yeah,
It's all
okay.
bullshit.
And you guys are gonna do a baked potato night? too?
In most instances,
Okay.
we're way.
Sorry, I should have spoken sooner.
You're good. We're way, we're plenty deep.
Right. No, I'm pretty pump, that's why.
In your instance, we're
Really nicely landscaped and everything.
Yeah.
We were doing some online.
But I can,
How's this going?
look up your service and tell you how deep it is.
Concept.
That mark in those
Which
statements.
this area, they're.
There's a bunch of writing.
This is.
This seemed to me that it was something bad about each flight.
Yeah.
But keep the stake.
Yeah.
For the locate wires.
Well, anyway, okay, we'll see you.
Thank you.
I'm glad I talked to them. They can just cover that thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
One knows. Restart the day.
So, you have a pretty thick wall, is that in stone or is that?
It's block.